Alrighty, fellas. I'm going to open us in prayer. Lord, I appreciate you uh, allowing us to meet tonight. I pray that you will help us to understand your word, and please teach us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
What I wanted to talk about this time is something that throughout most of the Bible I have noticed and seen and heard of. God does this thing, and boy howdy is it real cool. I like it when he does this thing, usually. So what I called this message is God, the destroyer of gods. Okay, this is what he does. So I want to start off in Exodus. Okay, so this is what God does. What God did in Egypt, and it talks about it in Exodus, is God showed up to their hood, took all their false gods, bent them all over his knees, spanked them, grabbed his kids, and left. Mm-hmm. And it's great. So it's not so much a specific verse, and I called this a message. It'll turn into one towards the end, but I guess the first portion of this is more informational, more just I think it's interesting. But so like I said, it's not really a specific verse, but it is over the course of Exodus chapter 7 to chapter 12 goes over the plagues. So God sends Moses to Pharaoh and says, let my people go. And Pharaoh says, no, kick rocks. So then God says, all right, and hits him with a plague. Ends up being 10 plagues. But something interesting about the 10 plagues is that each plague was a thing that discredited a god or gods that the Egyptians worshipped.
Yes.
Okay, so the very first plague that happened was Exodus chapter 7 verse 14. And the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, he refuses to let the people go. Get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning, lo, he goeth out unto the water, and thou shalt stand by the river's bank against thee come. And the rod which was turned to a serpent shalt thou take in thine hand, and thou shalt say unto him, the Lord God of the Hebrews hath sent me unto thee, saying, let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness, and behold, hitherto thou wouldest not hear. Thus saith the Lord, in this thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in mine hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. So, Egyptians, this is, it says water and river, and it's the Nile River. Now, this is Egypt. The Nile River is, I imagine, sort of like Times Square for us. It's Washington. Washington D.C. That's the Nile for the Egyptians was everything to them. It was their life. It was where they got food. It was commerce. It was everything was surrounding the Nile River. They had many, quite a few gods that they worshipped, gods of the river, gods of the Nile, protector of the Nile, all this stuff. And with this plague that God caused, God was showing them, where's your gods now? Where'd they go? Are they sleeping? What happened to them? I'm the God of the Nile. I made it. This is what God did. So the second plague was frogs. There was an outbreak of frogs, just frogs everywhere. In Egyptian mythology, there is a frog-headed fertility goddess, completely discredited. The third plague was Moses smacked the dust of the earth with his staff, and the dust turned to lice, and there was a lice outbreak in all the land. And this was discrediting the god of earth and fertility that the Egyptians had. The fourth plague was flies. There was a overwhelming amount of flies that just pestered everybody and that was discrediting the gods. The Egyptians had gods of the air. This is the air god. This is the air goddess. Not anymore. You see, flies were also, I learned today, flies were a symbol of military accomplishment. So soldiers in Egypt were given a medallion of a fly as a trophy if they did something cool in battle, sort of similar to Medal of Honor.
Okay.
If I understand correctly,
Yeah.
it was their Purple Heart. It was their medal. They'd get a little medallion of a fly if a Egyptian soldier did something cool or impressive. So not only is this discrediting the air gods, it's discrediting the entire army. You know, in a lot of ways.
Right.
So you've got all these air gods and all these big, strong soldiers, and still can't do nothing about any of these flies. The fifth plague, all the livestock died, all of them, all the cows, the horses, the camels, all the livestock in Egypt died, and the Egyptians have a goddess who they created or whatever, who was a cow, and that was the goddess of fertility. Completely discredited. Boils. This was discrediting the gods of healing and health that the Egyptians worship. Hail. There was a hailstorm. Completely destructive. Completely discredited the sky gods. The Egyptians have a storm god. Completely discredited. Then came locust, that consumed all the crops. This discredited the agricultural gods and there's crop protecting gods. This god, he protects our crops. Thank you. And where was he? So then, yeah, I'm just making sure. Okay. Ninth plague was darkness. Great darkness fell on the land. Just pitch black outside. This was discrediting the Egyptians' main god, the sun god. Completely. This is so interesting that it wasn't random.
Right.
It wasn't God was like, I don't know, turn the water to blood, see if that does anything. It was calculated. So every single god was discredited, destroyed, proven false, proven ineffective, proven dead, proven deaf. And then the final plague was where we get the Passover from. The final plague was the death of every firstborn in the land. Obviously, God, we know, created a way for the Israelites to be protected from this. So that's the interesting thing too that I wanted to point out is that all these problems, so water to blood, frogs, dust flies, a lot of these plagues didn't affect the Israelites at all. So the Israelites had their own little community that they lived in. And their community, like when all the livestock died, the Israelites' livestock didn't die, they were fine. And so not only is God discrediting and proving false all these gods, he's also, all these people are walking outside itching their boil or swatting a fly away or stupid frog, get out of my house. And they're looking at the Israelites over there. Completely fine. Nothing, absolutely nothing. All their cows are alive. All their horses are alive. So not only is it disproving false gods, it's proving God. Mm. But, so the final plague, the death of every firstborn, not only is this retaliation against Pharaoh, because when Moses was born, there was prophecies running around, spreading rumors. Not rumors, that makes it sound wrong, but you know, there was a prophecy that Pharaoh heard of that there was going to be a deliverer rising up And so the Pharaoh made a decree and had every newborn boy of the Israelites, what was it, up to 3 months old, I think?
Just when they were born. Yeah.
I thought it was a specific
Yeah.
age. I don't
Yeah.
remember. But Pharaoh had all the newborn Israelite boys killed, all of them. And obviously God saved Moses, but so many of the Israelite boys were killed. So when God sent the final plague, it was retaliation for that. So now all the Egyptian, and not just babies, if you were 37 and a half and you were a firstborn, unless you painted your post with lamb's blood, you're out, you know? And so every plague discredited to God. What this does, so in Egypt, the Pharaoh was considered a god
Yeah.
to the people. Pharaohs were said to have descended from gods back in the Ande. So the Pharaoh's son was killed in this plague. So not only was the next up Pharaoh killed, the current Pharaoh was powerless to do anything about it. Not truly. I mean, he could have A, let the people go, or B, put the lamb's blood on his door. One of the two. Who knows? But everyone gets to see two gods get discredited at once. Two
Right.
people that they worship. And so that's Egypt. But so this whole God destroying other people's gods in front of them, in front of their eyes, continues. Next up is Assyria. Assyria in 2 Kings 19. This is actually, there's two things. Isaiah 27, 2 Kings 19 and Isaiah 27 coincide. Okay, so the Assyrians were threatening God's people. This is 500, 1,000 years later than, after Egypt. But so the Assyrians are raiding Jerusalem. They're getting ready to go against it in battle. Okay, getting ready to take it all over, and everyone's freaking out because the Assyrian army was not a joke. And so everyone's freaking out. Just a mass of Assyrian soldiers are outside Jerusalem. They're freaking out. The people are losing it. And the king, Hezekiah, and the prophet at that time, Isaiah, were kind of putting their heads together and talking to God about it, trying to figure out what the heck they're supposed to do. And it's funny because all throughout this time period, the people are so terrified, and they're like, oh, we should call this person for help, or call this person for help, or they all want to run to Egypt for help, which is insane to think about.
Yeah.
But this whole time God is saying, stay right where you are, don't move, don't go anywhere. I don't remember exactly where, but around this time period, everyone was saying, we got to run to Egypt, and God was like, if you lean on Egypt, it's like leaning on a broken staff. It's just going to pierce your hand. It's
Right.
not going to do, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So all these, I mean, that's a sermon in and of itself. Sometimes you got to stay put, and sometimes faith is not doing anything. Faith is staying right where you are,
Right.
and just sit there and wait, and it's playing hard. But so everyone's terrified. The army's outside. So I'm going to read what happens. So all this scary stuff is going on. And in Isaiah, because, 2 Kings is kind of the country recording it, and Isaiah is his own personal journal in a lot of ways. Isaiah 27 verse 1, it says, "In that day the Lord with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea." So there's a prophecy about God killing Leviathan. And what's interesting and about all this is, about this whole thing is that it lines up a little too well with the Assyrians, which is exactly why I think this is the exact prophecy, that's about exactly what happened. So the prophecy is that God's gonna slay Leviathan, and then what happens is in 2 Kings 19:35 it says, "And it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote," that means killed, murked, did in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000 soldiers. The angel of the Lord went out and killed 185,000 soldiers in one night.
That's insane.
It says, "And when they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses."
Wow.
So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed. Pretty smart move. I'm going to go home now. And went and returned and dwelt at Nineveh. Nineveh is the capital of Assyria. And it came to pass, as he, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, was worshipping in the house of Nisroch, his god, that Adramelech and Sharezer, his sons, killed him with a sword, and they escaped into the land of Armenia. And Esarhaddon, his son, reigned in his stead. Well, this is interesting to me, because God did it again. He did it again. It just caught me, Nisroch, his god. Who is that? What is that? Nineveh, from Jonah, or the VeggieTales movie Jonah, the fish slappers. They were sea people.
Yeah.
You understand? The sea was a very huge part of their culture. Nisroch was a fish god, the god of the sea.
Wow.
You understand? So I had this question, and I wondered if Nisroch is Leviathan.
Okay.
Because God prophesied through Isaiah
That he was going to destroy him.
that he was going to kill Leviathan.
Yeah.
And, so I looked it up. So there's a lot of uncertainty in it, because a lot of people think that Nisroch is just a misspelling, that it was actually supposed to be Nimrod, which is something totally different.
Okay.
But the word Nisroch, in a very specific Hebrew dictionary, is defined as flight. The word Nisroch is defined as flight.
Wow.
And Leviathan is referred to as the fleeing serpent.
Wow.
So God killed Leviathan. He killed their God.
Yeah.
You worship, and this is exactly what happened to Jonah. Why the whale was so important.
Right.
Because Jonah needed it to happen to him. The Ninevites needed that to happen to Jonah. Okay, because God told Jonah, go prophesy to Nineveh, and Jonah said, I ain't gonna do it, and he ran away. He was scared. He was too scared to go. And so he ended up swallowed by a whale. Jonah needed to see that, because it's almost like God was saying, they worship the God of the sea. I'm the God of the sea. Do you understand? The whale came. I command the biggest thing,
Right.
well, arguably, biggest thing in the ocean. It does exactly what I say when I say it. So stop being scared.
Right.
Why are you scared of them and their false God when I'm the real God?
Yes.
and I'm really the God of the sea.
Yes.
So stop being scared. And then the Ninevites see this dude coming into town with seaweed, smelling like whale intestines.
Yeah.
Going, what the heck? And it's so such a common thing that with the Egyptians and all the Assyrians, that God will destroy your gods right in front of you. And then next is Babylon. In Daniel chapter 4, verse 28. This is interesting because I think it's fairly common knowledge. I mean, I've known it for quite a while that about Egypt, about how all the plagues meant something. All the plagues were discrediting a specific god, but that's all I knew. And then through my own reading, God showed me the Nisroch Leviathan thing, and but this is so. Then when I saw it happen again to Assyria, I started to wonder, like, where else did this happen? So I thought about Babylon, and I read it, and it's interesting. It's really interesting because God did it again in Babylon, but it's not quite the same. So Nebuchadnezzar, who was Nebuchadnezzar's God? Who did Nebuchadnezzar worship?
I know
He worshipped.
Thought of him as a god.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Nebuchadnezzar was his god. He was his own god.
Yeah.
He worshipped himself. He thought he was all that in a bag of chips. He thought he was him. You understand? So what God did is he destroyed Nebuchadnezzar's god right in front of him. So in Daniel chapter 4, verse 28, I just want to give you a little prelude before all this is happening. So Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel are something like boys by this point.
Right.
They have respect for each other. Nebuchadnezzar might not be a Christian, but he appreciates the fact that Daniel's got a pretty big God and he's the real deal. So they have respect for each other. Nebuchadnezzar also knows that Daniel can interpret dreams. He did it before. So Nebuchadnezzar has a dream. He doesn't understand what it means. So he calls Daniel. He says, get Daniel on the horn real quick once. I got to talk to him about something. Daniel comes, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Nebuchadnezzar tells Daniel the dream. And Daniel's a little off-put about the dream. Daniel says in chapter 4, verse 19, Daniel says, the dream be to them that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thine enemies. Daniel said, man, I wish this dream was for your enemies, not for you. It's such it's true. And Nebuchadnezzar's like, well, what's going on? What's going to happen? Well, the dream translated to the king Nebuchadnezzar was going to lose his kingdom. And he was going to go insane. And it was going to be a real bad time for a good long while. And Nebuchadnezzar said, well, all right. Probably scared him a little bit at first, but he got over it. Because a year later, in the main chunk of what I want to talk about, Daniel chapter 4, verse 28, says, all this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon. The king spoke and said, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? It's a crazy thing. Nebuchadnezzar said, "Look at everything I did.
Look at me.
Look at me. I'm something great." And while those words were still in the king's mouth, a voice came from heaven saying, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from you." It's a horrifying thing. It's a horrifying thing. Imagine. "And they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee, 7 years, until thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whoever he wants." The same hour was the thing fulfilled. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and my understanding returned unto me. This dude was insane. He lost everything. He says, my understanding returned to me. He was clinically insane. Psychotic. Gone. "And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that lives forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. And he doeth according to his will in the army of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand, or say unto him, What doest thou? At the same time my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and brightness returned unto me. And my counselors and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth, and his ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase." So, the Egyptian thing, the Assyrian thing, I don't know. I don't know what anybody here's past is. Maybe you used to worship the sun god, and if you're here now worshiping the living God, we're glad to have you. Great. Usually though, the Egyptian and Assyrian thing doesn't apply to us, but this is it. This is still Leviathan.
Yeah, the pride.
The pride. God said in Job that Leviathan is the king of the children of pride. This is Nebuchadnezzar was his own god, and God destroyed Nebuchadnezzar's god himself, and it was a ride for him. I can't imagine. So like I said, we might not have experience with worshiping the god of the Nile, but pride is something that everybody struggles with. I mean, pride and rebellion are the original sins. You know what I mean? It's something that's, this is exactly what I went through in a lot of ways. I'd say, luckily, I didn't spend 7 years half naked eating grass in the woods. And what I went through, I wouldn't say is anywhere near that. It's not really about competition, though. What I went through was horrible. Things that had to break off me. Things that, for the first 23 years of my life, the pride that I had grew exponentially with each passing year. I have compassion on myself, though. Not too much. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that what I did was okay, or that being prideful is okay. It's not at all. But I do have compassion on myself. And I will tell you about that in the next one.